Hello, I'm Nick. Welcome back. I've got a really sweet batch this week. Number 30, Upstream Color. There is nothing like Upstream Color, and I'm including all media when I say that. It's a movie about jumping between consciousnesses and literally getting under people's skin. It's a biological fantasy film about a worm-pig-orchid life cycle wrapped in a strange relationship drama conveyed through a kind of rhythm more in line with music videos than narratives. It's deeply hypnotic and deeply visual, a pinnacle of show don't tell. It shows everything and barely says a word about what's actually happening. The sheer singular nature of Upstream Color is exhilarating. It gets away with being so damn weird and feeling its own groove, and succeeds as the only movie of its kind. Number 29, Whiplash. Are great artists the product of pure passion and love, or are they forged in the flames of flagellation, hammered into place on the anvils of assholes? Can there be a middle ground? Whiplash doesn't have an answer, at least not a satisfying one, but it poses that conundrum with razor-sharp intensity. What level of sacrifice is necessary to master your field? This toxic arts mentor relationship between Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons felt all too real to me. Abusive arts mentors with rigid, fear-based teaching practices are a dime a dozen in this world, but underrepresented in cinema. It's important to bring attention to these kinds of people, if only so fewer students are blindsided by their bullshit, but it's also an endlessly fascinating, brutal love-hate dynamic, and the act of drumming is the perfect metaphor for the relentless rhythm and the repetitive robotic precision used to pressurize a rock into a diamond, in theory. Whiplash does a great job representing the agony of artistry, and it makes a compelling case for both sides of an impossible argument. By the end, spoilers for Whiplash, it can only drum its way out. But Miles Teller's real drum solo is so awe-inspiring, I was basically checkmated into a minutes-long standing ovation the first time I saw this thing. Number 28, Enter the Void.
Back to normal.
Just look at the opening credits of this movie. It means business. It's going to climb inside your brain and break all of the furniture by making you climb into someone else's. There's no better version of a first-person perspective than Enter the Void. It has never been surpassed or equaled. You are in this guy's head, hearing his thoughts, blinking his eyes, and then he dies. And you get to see what that's like. Hovering above a city, phasing through walls, becoming a disembodied spirit. It's all photoreal. And then he relives his whole life from a third-person perspective. I still don't entirely understand how this movie exists. It's a religious experience. It's definitely overlong. I'd argue many of the final passages are inconsequential, but I can't blame Gaspar Noé for mucking about with this flawless magic movie camera that he's invented. He figured out how to go anywhere and jump inside of anything, so why not go everywhere and jump inside of everything? Number 27, Maps to the Stars.
The truth is my parents were brother and sister. I never tell anyone that. But I think it'd be cool. I mean, it's kind of been there, done that. I know that sounds jaded, but I think it'd make a cool indie. You know, I want to act in it. And you could too.
Cronenberg takes his body horror shtick to Hollywood / Toronto, and it's a classic example of how much more enjoyable a movie is when you have a pre-existing relationship with the director. I love thinking about all these characters in the context of Cronenberg because the statement he's making, just by having his name on this thing, is that the movie star obsession with image, climbing up the ladder, latching on to any person or opportunity like a parasite, and the grossness of that lifestyle, at its worst, lives in the same dimension as Brundlefly and Videodrome, and all the stomach-churning nightmare fuel I imagine when I hear his name. There's also an incredible restraint here tonally. Very little, if any, leading music, no crazy edits. For something so sick and manic that could easily turn into a huge cartoon, the whole thing is just allowed to breathe and remain as grounded and realistic as possible, defying categorization. Number 26, Knight of Cups.
Find it.
There's a party we're having next week. It's a ketamine party. You ever gotten involved in that? Go down the K-hole, you're here for 20 seconds, and then wham, you're out.
Terrence Malick submerges Christian Bale into a lovely Hollywood vortex of distractions and distractions within distractions, which is all fun and games until he can't make head or tail of where he is or who he's even inhabiting. The onslaught of lights and colors is blinding, and suddenly he's in a desert, weeping for seemingly no reason, and all of the reasons. Where Malick's other movies seek clarity in chaos, Cups is a wicked inversion about incoherence wrought from an overabundance of the fantastic. There's so much disjointed shit spinning around that the feeling of lucidity for 30 seconds is rendered miraculous. I don't know about you, but for me, life tends to evade a clean, biopic-like narrative the longer I've lived it. More often, it feels like a series of bits and bobs, and it's very easy to get lost and suffocate under those dreamy clouds, to become a walking YouTube supercut of unrelated moments rather than a true coalescence of all the tiny pieces that have led me to the present moment. Knight of Cups is the best expression of that feeling I've ever seen. Number 25, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I mean, can you imagine if we lost this kill code?
Uh-oh!
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong clip.
I mean, can you imagine if we lost this kill code? Uh-oh!
A man invents a machine that can control the weather, assuming you want food-based weather. It's adapted from a children's book, and it's hard to imagine this idea amounting to anything more than a short film, but it's Lord and Miller, so not only is it a crisp 90 minutes, but every minute has that perfect joke density. They fill every frame with funny on top of additional funny, and they never forget the heart in the process. It's pretty much in the same universe as Clone High. There's so much care here, so many little details. I love all the characters, even the evil ones, even the annoying baby man played by Andy Samberg. I could watch this movie 100 times. I could reenact this movie in its entirety. I don't know why I stopped at a 60-second version. Number 24, Paterson.
Here is the most beautiful match in the world. So sober and furious and stubbornly ready to burst into flame.
This is the story of 1 week in the life of a bus driver named Paterson living in the city of Paterson. He's also a poet. Nothing crazy happens. He just lives his life, loves his wife, writes his poems, and walks his dog. And Jim Jarmusch makes this a delight from start to finish. It's like reading a great diary, full of brilliant observations bouncing off of each other, some connected, some recurring, some freestanding, completely satisfying in and of themselves. Paterson is an unseen artist, capturing the exquisiteness of his seemingly dull life, experiencing it to its fullest. He can take a matchbox and turn it into a priceless artifact. It's the kind of movie that changes how I look at my own life, particularly in this COVID Groundhog Day we're all trapped inside of right now. Every week is full of routine and repetition, yes, but if I shift my head a couple of degrees to the right angle, it's very easy to see the beauty and the drama and the ridiculousness and the poetry, and we have the power to carve something compelling from it, if only for ourselves. Number 23, The Master.
Do you love Doris?
Yes.
Is she the love of your life?
Yes, sir.
Why aren't you with her?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Tell me why you're not with her if you love her so much.
I told her I'd come back, and I never went back, and now I gotta get back to her.
Why don't you go back?
I don't know.
Why don't you go
I don't know!
Close your eyes.
Paul Thomas Anderson makes a little movie about religion, faith, spirituality, why we crave it, what it's all about, loosely based on the beginnings of Scientology. But this is by no means a damning expose. It's about a sincere search for meaning beyond the conscious world we inhabit. Freddie Quell is a war veteran without a purpose. He's operating entirely on instinct, and he comes up against Lancaster Dodd, the leader of this spiritual movement, and he's running on intellect. It's a classic opposites attract style bromance, and they're investigating each other and the spiritual realm simultaneously. The Master reminds me a lot of theater school. You're dealing with concepts that can't be 100% pinned down by any kind of scientific approach because it's human consciousness. We're looking at things that are as big or bigger than the size of our own minds. And you're doing really vulnerable things, and you have to try to embody your own answers. And it's a never-ending process. And you end up doing a lot of stuff that seems ridiculous and not helpful, and sometimes it is stupid. But then you hit a nerve and you find something that you didn't know was right there, living inside of you, and it seems like magic. The Master lives in that world, bouncing between the animalistic and the intellectual, the idiotic and the profound. And if you're open to it, it'll take you for a ride. Number 22, The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo.
He's not bi. Me, I'm bi, I'm fresh, I'm hip.
You're going bi.
Going bi. Big time. Big time. So who are you gonna hook me up with?
Oh, this is my job now?
Yeah, you know tons of gender fluid people.
Are you also interested in gender fluid, like women with masculine attributes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me think of some people.
How are you, good Caleb, sir?
I don't have class today, but I do have this study meeting later with this guy at 9.
Is he cute?
He's kind of cute.
Is he gender fluid?
Benjamin.
Sorry, just checking.
And then I'm supposed to FaceTime later with this guy Benicio, who I'm basically in love with, but I think it might just be an idea.
Is that the guy from England?
Yeah. Oh, I told you about him.
Yeah, you said he has very, very smooth skin.
He does. It's so smooth.
Is he gender fluid?
Benjamin!
This is a web series by Brian Jordan Alvarez, and it's funnier and more moving than most of the movies that came out this decade. It's also super duper inspiring. Like, anyone could make this, assuming you're an amazing writer, actor, director, surrounded by brilliant friends. But what I mean is, you don't need to rent a crane or understand visual effects or raise $1 billion. All you need is incredible characters. That's the single most interesting thing a movie can contain. And you mix them up in as many different combinations as you can, and you make them sleep with each other, and you create rifts and rivalries and joy and understanding, and then you edit like there's no tomorrow. Don't waste a single second, and it's just the best. I could watch 1,000 episodes of this. It's just people. Fuck money, fuck studios, fuck the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, we can have both. They're both great, but you know what I mean. Number 21, we need to talk about Kevin.
I'm gonna throw it to you. You're gonna roll it back to me, okay? Okay. Roll it back to Mommy.
When your child commits an atrocity, how much ownership do you take? You did raise them, but they were the worst. But was that your fault because you kind of thought they were a jerk? Was it a self-fulfilling prophecy? And even if you can somehow absolve yourself of the guilt, how can you live in a world where everyone blames you? We Need to Talk About Kevin is a movie that gets inside my body and turns me into Tilda Swinton. I'm upset just remembering it, but it's such a full-flavored psychic switcheroo. I can only stare into it like it's a solar eclipse and I'm an idiot. And there aren't a ton of movies that really dive into dysfunctional mother-son relationships. We all have issues with our mothers to some extent, and it feels like a rich subject, but it's so difficult to actually discuss and probe cinematically. It's like a forbidden world. I could not believe this movie was based on a book. It's so visual, so moody in a pure cinema way. Lynne Ramsay is a conjurer, and I would let her put me into the mind of a toilet. She's just that compelling. Thank you so much for joining me once again. We're gonna talk about numbers 20 to 11 next time. Whew, that is going to be difficult. Okay, I'm gonna go make that. Bye for now. See you next time. I have a degree in film.